welcome to Coach Talk with the Coaches. My name is Casey, and I'm the Vino and Vision lead coach here in Iowa. And I'm here with Zulma, our global lead coach who's in Florida. And we're here this month to talk about family fun and holidays. But we really want to focus on not so much the celebration and the traditions, but we want to touch on the things that can help our clients deal with stress and other things like that that come with this busy time of the year.
Thank you, Casey. Yes, I'm Zulma, and I am the global lead coach for Florida for Vino and Vision. First, I want to get started by saying thank you to our friends who usually await our monthly conversation with the coach. And we were not able to have our normal scheduled conversation with the coach last Wednesday, so we've rescheduled for today. But because of that, we have had bigger opportunity to have the conversation kind of off the air per se, and we usually tend to have these great conversations, and when then we go, oh wait, we got to get live because this is really good and our friends have to hear it. So as Casey said, we know that during the holidays, during this busy time, celebration, family fun is kind of supposed to be a given, right? Something that's supposed to come along with what we're doing and what's being put out there, and things that involved family activities, traditions, customs, etc. But as Casey mentioned today, we want our forefront focus to be on how to help ourselves, how to help our clients during this time, how to deal with the stressors that come with a period of time that focuses on sometimes high commercialism, right? Depending on, and I say sometimes because we've talked about this off air, because it's a holiday season, that looks different for every family. That may look different for every individual. For example, my family and I don't celebrate holidays. Other families do. Obviously, other people have other religions, etc., and that may look different for them. But the stressors that come with the season are just kind of like a given, whether that's because of the commercial aspect of it, or that may be because the particular individual may work in an industry that even though they may not celebrate the holiday, they're high in stress, right? So we've talked about a few things off of the camera on how to deal with this, and I really want to share with our friends. So why don't we get started with how to, okay, this one's good. We talked about boundaries, for example. Lately, I've been trying to shift away from the word boundary or even the energy around boundary. Someone shared with me yesterday, and I thought that was beautiful because it's how I've been feeling. And finally, I had someone else kind of bounce that off of me. And she said, when you talk about boundaries, you put on this, whether it's energetic, imaginary, or an actual wall, physical wall of some sort, or a line on the sand, it creates something that should not be penetrated, right? It shouldn't be passed through. And when it is, it creates this sense of, well, now you've done me wrong. So instead of that, she expressed how now it's more about that shift in how I feel, and understanding that our boundaries, if there were, may look different every single day because we're different people every day. And I love that. So I want to talk about the sense of boundaries within the season and the stressors that the season can cause, but more in that sense, what can we do to take care of ourselves, take care of our loved ones, whether we celebrate holidays or not? Just talking about that energetic aspect of what we go through in the season. If you want to lead us on that, Casey, I'd be very thankful.
Yeah, sure. So regarding boundaries specifically,
right, or that sense of how we react, right, when some things have been passed through that imaginary sense of this is my limit kind of thing. You cannot come to this side, I cannot go to your side. Mm-hmm. But how to make it in a way that, for example, we were talking about the practice of gift giving, right? So if you want to elaborate on that, that'd be great, within that sense.
Right. So what we're talking about is like in society, We have all of these, and it's especially prevalent. It's prevalent all year long, but it's especially so, and it's like really exaggerated during this time of the year of you have to do these types of things because as a culture or as a society, we're doing this. And a lot of times it comes from commercialism, but a lot of times too, it comes down just from family traditions. And depending on, your situation, you may have certain things that you may feel that you have to do this thing or people are going to be mad at me or it's expected of me. And so you don't really think, sometimes we don't even think about it. We just go ahead and do it. And then later we might feel really, overwhelmed because we've taken on too much or, stuff like that. But with gift giving specifically, this is a good example because a lot of times what will happen is, you may be celebrating the holidays in a way that you give gifts to each other, to different people. And then all of a sudden you might receive a gift from somebody that you did not expect to receive a gift from because that's not, maybe it's a coworker or maybe somebody just shows up at your house with a gift or, just anybody in your life. It can happen in different ways and you weren't expecting this. And so then you're left with a sense of obligation. And so something I learned several years ago is that according to Miss Manners, that's where I'm getting the information. If somebody gives you a gift, it's not required that you give them a gift back. What is required is that you say thank you. And so that is it. And so that is an example of setting a boundary or whatever we want to call it, right? So just setting those limits for ourselves and for others. So it might be helpful to have a conversation with people ahead of time and tell them, maybe you want to tell them that you've decided not to give gifts this year, or maybe you've decided that, I've known some people that have decided to not give gifts, but instead to spend their time volunteering during the season. And, or you might just decide that I don't want to give gifts at all, or I'm only going to give gifts to my family, whatever it is for you. If you get an unexpected gift, then you can just say thank you. But more importantly, just taking the time also to have those conversations with people that this is where you're coming from. And again, also if, let's say a friend gives you a gift and you weren't planning on exchanging gifts, but they got you one anyway, and you say thank you and don't give them a gift. If, let's say this friend gets upset with you, then that's really on them because when we give gifts, it really shouldn't be with the intent of getting something for ourselves anyway. That's why it's called a gift, because you are giving something away and you're not doing it to get something back. So again, if that were to happen, that just opens up a doorway for a conversation. So rather than having it be a cause of stress and a reason to set up one of the boundaries like you were talking about that closes people off, it's really an opportunity to open a door and have a conversation. And that might not always be comfortable. You might feel like, I don't really, just feeling uncomfortable is the only way I can explain it. But it's important to go ahead and face that being uncomfortable because it can really strengthen relationships. And I think that's what we need to be doing is strengthening relationships rather than closing doors and putting up boundaries and pushing people away, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing those tips because even though we are talking about the holiday season and that energy that happens around this time of year, it's something that can apply in every other situation where that situation may arise. And I love the part where you said it opens up an opportunity for a conversation because unfortunately a situation like that, it's very likely to happen when feelings are hurt that I'm giving so much, but I'm not receiving. And again, we're talking about gifts, but it's just so, it can apply to so many other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
it doesn't have to be a physical gift. It could be maybe somebody did you a quote unquote favor, or, maybe you didn't ask for it, but they did something for you, it could be that as well.
And now they have a sort of like a grudge because, they're not receiving they feel that whomever is not being reciprocal, and it could be, again, that opportunity for a conversation and perhaps even reveal that the status of the friendship, relationship, etc., was not what, either one thought. And it's an opportunity to decide, do we want to work on it, or is this it? Unfortunately, something so small or something that was intended to bring joy and happiness sometimes doesn't. So we actually did talk about that earlier as well, how the season can be another time where it may cause more issues and stress because of not being able to say, can't do this at this time, right? That's my limit. I should not spend the money I don't have, and not get into the mindset of, I'll do this now, I'll deal with it later. Because the later will come, it's like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? And then those feelings of resentment may set in and come in and start having that ripple effect around their relationships, first with the self, then with others, etc. So what we want to encourage our friends is to always just be mindful of intention. What intention do I have in giving a gift, doing a favor, etc.? Am I expecting something back? And it is not to say that we shouldn't have some expectation, right? And that lies in what you said, Ms. Manner said, which is a kind thank you, a show of gratefulness. I think as human beings, unless done with the wrong intention, that is what we're looking for when we do something that's intentionally heartfelt, authentic in the heart. So if you are on the receiving end of a gift, always remember to say thank you. That goes a long way. Just appreciation for the gift, but also the relationship. And then if you're on the giving end, always look into, why am I doing this? And if it does not sit right with you, make the choice that's gonna bring out your best version instead of the situation that may cause the regrets and the issues. We also talked about something that's very important that comes around with this time, and it's just, we've talked about the season as being in this celebratory spirit of what happens during these last few months of the year, but let's focus on the actual season, right? And what those changes can bring. I know you shared with me, Casey, that this is a particularly different time for you, this time of year. It affects your well-being in a different way, so that you've come up with different coping mechanisms as to what you do to take care of yourself, because I want this part to lead us into how to take care of ourselves during this time. Whether we celebrate the holidays or not, we are affected by what's going on, and primarily this need of rushing through everything. And so, yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us what that's all about, I'd love to.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen too, because I have, for those of you who this is going on our open page, so anybody can see this. If you are part of our VIP, then every Tuesday night, I do something called Coaching with Casey, and it goes along with the theme for the month. And so this is from what I did last week. So I'm just going to share a couple of slides because I think it's very applicable to what we're talking about today. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll talk about that. So let me. Okay, so should be sharing. So before I get into that, like what Zulma was saying is that there are certain things that during this time of the year especially affects us differently. And that is because, and this is something I talk a lot about on Coaching with Casey, is that much of what we think and believe doesn't come from within ourselves. Instead, it comes from outside of ourselves, from outside sources. And this happens over time, our whole life. And I call it programming. Other people call it other stuff. But basically what we receive from the day we're born all throughout our life, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the world around us has been created by this programming that a program, we could say, that our brain creates. And that's because when we're talking about our subconscious takes everything in. It's just like a sponge, and it doesn't judge it. It just takes it in and it takes it for what it is. And so it creates this program. So based on everything we've taken in over our lives. And some of it may be true, some of it may not be true. The point is that unless we're aware of it, it's happening in the background, and we may be playing out things in our lives that that aren't necessarily authentic to ourselves or even helpful to ourselves. And then there may be things that we're doing that are great, but that we should do more of that we don't realize because of this programming that's going on and on. So that's kind of the basis for where I just want to put that out there, that we need to be aware of how and why these things come in. And it's just anything. It can be, your family, your friends, just even, TV shows, magazines, school, just anything that's going on, anything that you've experienced in your life. And that's going to look different because we're all different and have different experiences, but it's still the same end result is that we are creating these programs for ourselves. And if we're not aware of it, then these things play out. So during any time of the year, it can actually keep us from the joy and the meaning of our lives. But it especially seems to be kind of amped up this time of the year because there are so many more things going on in society regarding this time of year. So what I talk about is the holiday have-tos. And this is something I came up with several years ago, just in my own personal development of realizing that, I have so much to do and I'm not really enjoying any of it. So there's some things that I used to enjoy and now I'm not even enjoying those things because I just have so many things to do. So what I like to do is to think about and ask these questions. So what exactly is it that you think you have to do? Why do you have to do it? Who told you that you have to do it? And then ask yourself, does it bring joy? Is it meaningful? And does it matter? And so you can do that, by talking to friends, or if you're more of like, you're more introspective and like to do things by yourself, you can do it in a notebook just by writing it out, like write your list out like I have up here on the screen, and then going through the questions and answering them. So, and I'm just going to go through these quick. I'm not going to go through my examples, but just those are the questions that you can ask is what exactly is it that you think you have to do? Why do you have to do it? Who told you that you had to do it? And then once you get those answered, you can go into deeper meanings of, does it bring joy? Is it meaningful? And does it matter? And then once you get through that, this is the fun part, is that once you've actually thought about all of these things and you've figured out which things are meaningful and joyful to you, then you can do your wonderful want to. So these are the things that bring joy and meaning to your life. And so, for this specific time of year, you can ask, what is the meaning of the holiday season to me? If it's any time of the year, or even if you don't celebrate holidays, it's just, with anything, you can ask yourself, what is the meaning of this thing that I'm doing? And then, kind of going through a list and finding out what are the things that you really do enjoy. And this mostly will be, can be based on the list that you made already, but you can think about it more because sometimes there's things we might not consider because out of tradition, we have done, X, Y, and Z, and maybe we haven't done some other activity in life that we want to try. And so this can be an opportunity to make more meaning in your life by trying something new, by doing wonderful want to, and just by thinking about it. So I am going to go ahead and not share my screen anymore since I've gone through that. And then Zulma, you can, if you have any comments or you have anything to add, or if you want to move on to something else that maybe you have that's helpful.
Sure. What I was thinking about as you were sharing that, what a wonderful resource it can be for those that are actually affected by the season in a little bit different ways, simply because they've not found what it is that makes them who they are, for example, and they just happen to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They're by themselves, essentially. They're, instead of being a multi-unit family, part of a family and community, they kind of find themselves out there. And this time just really magnifies the fact that they're alone. I know I've read a little bit about that phenomenon that can go on for those who maybe all are elderly and, you know, their families are not around. I don't know if you can hear me correctly. I think I'm frozen. I don't know.
You're not frozen on my end, so.
Okay, I'm frozen on my end, so as long as I'm not, that's okay. So the elderly, for example, right? Or those who just kind of are on their own in general. So thinking about what you've shared in that aspect, I think it becomes a really good resource for them to find that meaning in what is going on around them and how involved they want to be, or how to apply that in their day-to-day throughout the year. So when we all, including them and myself, when we find our truth, we remember that nothing in the exterior and in our environment are going to shake that. So whether it's a holiday season, whether it's any other source of stressor that may happen in our life, not to say that we don't, because our body physiologically immediately is going to do its thing. But when we have the mechanisms in place, the strategies, the mindset, and ties back to what you said, and instead of it being programming, as in we are giving the responsibility of control to others, right? Knowing what our mindset is like, what are becoming friends with our brain even teaches us that we do get to choose. You know, we do, there's a lot that happens in the subconscious and the unconsciousness, but it does come through our consciousness as well. So being able to say, hey, I want to take control of what I let into my deeper self, and therefore have more of that manageability when it comes to the program that we let, or essentially, or the software, right, that we let our brain penetrate our brain and make be a part of who we are. So I was just thinking about all these wonderful things you were sharing and how they apply to, in the long run, who we are and how we feel about ourselves, regardless of what's going on around us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true.
Yeah, very good. Are there any specific examples you can give us on how you do that in your, I know we talked about the gift giving, but anything else that you make a practice of as far as how to do more self-care around this time, right? In that spirit of not rushing, of taking it slower, and just actually enjoying time with family. Again, whether you celebrate or not, it is an opportunity to rest and restore and slow down a little bit if we want to.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about being present and practicing. Some people might call it like being mindful or have mindful meditation. I'm just, talking about just being present in the moment. And this is something that I struggle with, just because I'm a very creative person and I'm very much in my head a lot of the times. And so I found it to be really helpful to be on purpose thinking about that I need to be present. And this is something I do all year long, and it helps me to stay grounded and not just to be so, it's important that we're connected to our body, like that, just that body, mind, spirit connection. Like that's just really important. You don't want to just be like in your head all the time, or, in your emotions all the time. You want it to be really, you want to be more integrated so you can be more grounded. And so it's something that helps me a lot, is just to be present. And so one of the things I do is that it can only, you can set a timer and say, I'm going to do this for 1 minute, or I'm going to do this for 2 minutes. And so the first thing is just to quiet your thoughts. And a good way to do that is to focus on your senses. And that will get you out of your thoughts, because if you start noticing what's going on around you with your senses, then that will help. So for example, and you want to go through all 5, so you can just use your hand just to remember, okay, I have 5 senses, so let's just go through them. And so let's say that you're just sitting in a room like I am right now, or you can do it if you're out and about, and there's busy things around you. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be the same. So since I'm sitting in a room right now, I'll just go through it really quick. So it would be kind of like, okay, let's quiet my thoughts by focusing on my senses. So I'm going to focus on, what do I see? And you can look around, I see just, you can be as specific as you want, like look at every single detail, or you can just look at what's right in front of you. Like on my desk, for example, right now, I see my microphone, I see my computer, I see my sticky notes, I see a pen. Those are all the things I see. And then you can go, what do I hear? And then just really stop. This is kind of one that I find really interesting, because if you close your eyes and just listen for a few seconds, you'll hear things that you don't realize are going on all the time. So it could be like traffic that's far away. It could be animals outside, birds, squirrels, whatever you have. I've heard all kinds of things that I'm like, oh, wow, this is going on. And I just don't even stop and pay attention. And then you can move on to sense of smell. There may not be much of a smell, or there might be. I can and I kind of have to close my eyes to do it, because there's not like a lot going on up here because I'm up in my attic, but I can kind of smell just really lightly a candle that I have behind me that's not lit. So I can smell that. And then like, what do you taste? Well, I mean, you can even like, if you really focus in, what do you taste? Like, even if you're not eating something, there is sensation that comes in there. And then the last one would be like physically, what do you feel like? The temperature of the room, the way the chair feels that you're sitting in, or if you're standing, the way your feet feel. So just, taking kind of a body scan, like, do I feel my arms? So oftentimes, like, especially since we're on computers and phones so much these days, we lose sensation in our bodies, I find, especially like if you're sitting at a computer a lot like me, it's like kind of like the lower, like your legs and your feet on a kind of, you lose that. And then once you go through your senses, the next thing is you can check in emotionally with yourself and say, how am I feeling emotionally today? And you just do as best as you can with that. Sometimes people who aren't used to checking in with themselves emotionally might not have the vocabulary to explain everything. And so you could just ask yourself, well, do I feel like crying? Do I feel like laughing? Do I feel just calm? Do I feel, and just do the best you can with that. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And another way that I do this, I do it more oftentimes, like I take a walk and I do it when I'm walking. And that way your body's more engaged anyway. And there is something about like when you're walking or doing any activity where you have a left, right, because you're walking like this, right? And so it's that left, right. And maybe Zulma, you can help me out with this, what it's called. I can't think of what it's called, that happens in your brain when you're activating both sides at the same time with exercise. But there is something that happens when you do that. And so that can be a really good time to do the mindfulness of being present as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, it's the, hope I'm saying it right, but the dexterity of, right, of being able to engage. Whatever our dominant side is always going to try to take the lead, right? Whether we're talking about our hands, right, left, or our brain side. So we tend to be more on the creative. We're going to be more in that zone, or if we are more in the rational and analytical, we might be in that zone. But what you were saying is, it's really a cool example of what we do here as a coaching community, and it's to engage both sides, right? Activate the two so that there's this harmony relationship within the self, because we are engaging and making use of our whole self in a holistic way versus just doing one or the other, one at a time. So very good. And oh my God, I was just going to say, you've mentioned so many, just as a whole, it's amazing. And then if we don't remember it all, it's okay, right? If we don't remember how to do all of our five senses one at a time, or say, okay, I know this, and that, but just engaging in the moment of a particular situation. Let's say you've had a family argument during the party, right? And you find yourself that you're not breathing properly. Remember that just being able to smell, right? Engaging in that activity of, okay, I just need to find a quiet place and ground myself for a minute. And what do I smell? And engaging that part of the sense and being able to just focus in and then out, it's going to give that ability to calm the nervous system, the central nervous system, and then be able to deal with the things. And so that's just one tiny example of how we engage our senses to be able to do that. This is not related to the holidays, but there was a particularly very, very stressful time in my life where I already knew I was going to get very hard news. And I told myself that I needed to be prepared for that. And what was I going to do? And because it was in a doctor's office, I knew I'd probably be sitting in a chair somewhere. And I made a conscious note, or like a mental note, of using anything that was around me to give me that tactile grounding sense. And I remember holding on to that chair. And if I can think back to that particular moment, it still brings me peace, because I was kind of already prepared for that. I was prepared to engage my sense of touch to be able to, manage the situation. So sometimes we do know that there's something in particular is going to come our way that is going to cause us to kind of go into that high alert. And most of the time we don't. So being more of a, can't think of the word right now, but being prepared, essentially, right? Preventive. Mm-hmm. If we have a set of preventive measures that we could go to, it's a good way to just be prepared for anything that comes our way. And I know we focused a lot on just the things that could come our way during the season. And the reason why I wanted to focus on this is because I want to make sure that as coaches, we send out the message to those that could need us in their life in one way, shape, or form, to know that like we see these things happen, right? And they're very real, and they come along. They're always here, but during this time of the year, they're just magnified and heightened because there's a lot of emotions involved. Simply as that. Yeah.
Those are all really, really good points. I think we had a great conversation today, and I really hope it was helpful for people. I think it will be. And I think it's important. I like what you said about it. We don't have to know how to do all those things or remember all the things. And just if you could focus on like just one sense that can help you. And that was such a great example that you gave from a real time in your life. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you, Casey. Thank you for making the time and space for us to be able to have the conversation that we weren't able to have during the week. And I think it's definitely important to have it, and to make sure that our friends out there who need that extra support all the time, or, particularly during this time, know that we are here. And whether it's just through watching this video, right, and knowing like, hey, people do see what I go through, right? Or I'm not alone. I feel like I am, but now I realize that if this is an important topic of conversation, it's because I can't be the only one feeling like this or dealing with these things. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. You're amazing. The amazing way in which you explain things. I've always said that I'm very impressed with the way you're able to share your knowledge and being able to put it on those beautiful videos and sharing with everyone, because a lot of us are very visual learners, and being able to see it on the screen does make a big difference. So we need creatives like you, and you're just wonderful. And thank you.
No,
Thank
thank you, Zulma.
do.
And thank you for being here too, because I think that we make a good team. We what I don't have, you're like the complete opposite of me, and that you have. So we kind of like come together and make, you know, fill in each other's spot for each other. We make a good team. So
we sure do. And I remember the first time we met in person, it was just like we're just seeing each other. You know, one of the many times that we had seen each other, and it was just just that. And so well, thank you again for everything you do for Vino and Vision community, and for being the amazing coach and teacher that you are.
Thanks so much. And thank you too. So all right, well, I think that is our time is about up for today. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching this. Please leave us comments. I'll be checking back to see if there are comments, and I will answer you. And, you know, please share this. This is on our open page. You don't have to be a member to see it. So please share it. It might be helpful. If you find it helpful, then other people will find it helpful as well. So thank you. And I will say goodbye.
All right. Me too. I'll see you guys.